Of course, have a very large nuclear industry.
Who are the influence components of military into the country?
For having me on.
Alright. Welcome back everyone dito sa latest episode ng Deep Dive Pinas Foundation series natin. Kasama natin isa sa ating partners sa Pinas Foundation, Professor Ranjit Rai, who of course heads the Octa research. Salamat, Prof. Ranjit, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us, Octa Research, and of course, congratulations on all your success. We live in interesting times, Richard. The Vice President has already announced she's going to run. Not that that's a surprise, but and all the ramifications that come with it, including the ICC. The trial has started, and this is part of what living in interesting times. How all of this is going to affect, governance, politics in our country.
Absolutely, living in interesting times. In fact, the other day lang when I was at The Hague, I just came back last night. I was checking kung tuloy pa rin yung aircon, yung because ICC is being sanctioned by the US. Can you imagine that? It's such a crazy.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
They cannot use credit cards, they cannot pay people. Even the spokesman, I think umalis na, ang daming umalis na because you can get sanctioned if you work with the ICC. Baka hindi ka makapasok sa US. It's crazy. Next week, I think we're gonna have Amal Clooney also here in Oxford giving some lectures on international law, and also a couple of very big developments happening. But obviously, Prof. Ranjit, the reason why I always love having you here is because you don't only come here as my former teacher in Philippine Political Science, but also you have always this very timely and good surveys. In fact, one of the surveys that really helped me to evangelize this idea of what are the alignments, realignments to make sure we have competitive, pro-democracy, pro-pluralism coalitions in 2020 is because of the surveys that Octa did. Some of the greatest contribution you made was yung factional partisan alignments, which our good friends in Double or Numero are also doing very
taken up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the second one was you were doing the 2028 already in 2023, 2024, 2025, and those numbers are still holding. It's still Rafi, it's still Lenny, it's obviously still SARA in the front. But we'll discuss them later on. Let's go first, Prof.
Latest surveys,
Absolutely. So latest survey. Can you first give us a background about this latest surveys, the logistics, kailan to, and what is the context of it?
Well, first of all, these are surveys that were conducted in the fourth quarter of 2025. And these were part of a broader set of probes that focused on democracy, and as well as the issue of corruption. We had a big probe on corruption sponsored by the Office of the Ombudsman, which is also incredible by itself that the Office of the Ombudsman actually commission surveys to find out how people think about this issue. And and then the other side is really just an Octa initiative, is to look at the issue of democracy. So the three basic survey slides I'm going to show you all were conducted nationwide, 1,200 respondents last December, or the fourth quarter of 2025. And collectively, they measure the quality of governance and the democratic responsiveness in the Philippines. And they do so from the lens, I should say, or three basic analytical lenses. One is institutional trust. Do people trust government to solve problems? Two, political responsiveness. Do people feel elected officials represent or even listen to them, or value their views? And three, perceptions of corruptions. What forms of corruptions are most visible to citizens? And as a background, as a takeaway, they reveal a striking pattern, Richard. So one of the things we notice that our everyday Filipinos tend to maintain functional trust in institutions. That's an important thing. But they express deep skepticism, distrust towards our political elite, our politicians. And they perceive corruption as widespread and systemic. Well, these are troubling findings for some, but it does not, for me, it does not point to collapse in democracy. That's what we want to point it out. But it signals significant stress as far as representative governance is concerned. So yun nga, these are the slides I'm going to show today. Maybe you can show one of the slides, no? This is very important because it talks about
you don't see it right now, Prof?
No, I see it very well. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Filipino trust government institutions more than their elected politicians. So the prompt question is, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? I trust the national government to effectively address the country's problems. Gaano ka sumasang-ayon o hindi sumasang-ayon sa mga susunod na pahayag? May tiwala ako na matutugunan ng pambansang pamahalaan ang mga suliranin ng bansa. Meron bang mga Bisaya and Ilocano version na ito? I can imagine
Yes,
si
of
Lola
course. Yeah.
in Baguio going like more bulunan.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
but this is not a leading question. This is a very neutral question. So it passes the perfect test of neutral question in so very legit. Yeah.
So basic question, why is this indicator important? It talks about, you see, democracy rests on certain pillars. One of them is capacity. Can government solve problems? Do people still believe government can solve the everyday problems of the country? And this is supposed to in a sense, at one level, be supportive of our findings for trust and approval of, let's say, the president, the vice president, the trust and approval ratings of our top government officials. And what it seems to show is that people still believe government can solve problems. And it squares off with our findings on, let's say, the performance of the president, which is above 50%. This is where it's kind of despite all the noise, despite all the turmoil over the past 2 quarters, people still believe government can get things done. They believe the institutions, can provide solutions to everyday problems. Now, this doesn't signal democratic collapse. This signals, in our view, a trust in institutions, which, by the way, in the next slide, you'll see, if you can go to the next slide.
Interesting. Yeah. Let me take out the. But do you want to explain the so parang ang taas ng numbers sa Visayas, no?
Yeah, because apparently governments have had.
So yung pinakamahirap natin na kababayan, they seem to have great disagreement with the statement. And actually also in Visayas, you have 68%, almost 7 out of 10. How do you explain that? I mean, obviously qualitative question yan, pero ano yung working hypothesis mo dyan, Prof?
Yeah, so one key takeaway from this study, or from this particular probe, is institutional or government trust in government institutions remain resilient. And why we're doing this is because we had 2 successive quarters of political turmoil.
Right.
Let's even talk about a collapse, no? A transition to,
exactly.
So we were just trying to measure. First, in the 3rd quarter, what's the key finding? Last year, we asked people, would you still support democracy even with all its problems? And 8 out of 10 said yes. Second question, are you satisfied with the quality of democracy? 31%. Obviously, a very small minority are satisfied with democracy. And this is a second level of questions. Do you still believe government has the capacity to solve problems? Because this will be a signal. This could be a signal of some sort of collapse impending.
Kung bukas sila to extra constitutional or something.
Yeah, and then we also came out with these top 5 issues, no? And for the everyday Filipino, they trust government still. Number 2, they're very clear about what they want government to solve. And here you look at the top issues, top 5. The only thing political here, I mean, in terms of governance indicators, is really fighting graft and corruption, which is now on its 2nd quarter in being the top 5.
Mataas pa rin siya, no? So 1/3 ng ating kababayan, they still find corruption as serious problem that should be.
It's serious. Richard, you have to understand, fighting graft and corruption was what, number 10, 11,
Yun
for
nga.
almost years. Until the president, made an argument that it is a serious problem that it's a challenge we need to face. And it's a systemic, endemic challenge to both governance and
But that
democracy.
also shows
And
the
now, for
signaling
two
power of the
quarters,
president, right? The
yeah,
signaling power of the president.
yeah,
Suddenly,
and
because umamin si BBM na malaking problem corruption as if we didn't know it, it's actually something also people are prioritizing, diba?
yeah, one of the slides we'll show later is that graft and corruption is understood by many of our countrymen. 7 out of 10 Filipinos understand it to be an office-centered phenomenon, meaning, in simple terms, corruption is the use of government resources for private gain. 7 out of 10 Filipinos understand that. This is the Ombudsman study where that they gave us authority to release. We've released it already. Number two, they are very aware of the issue, especially the issue of the flood control. They watch it on the news, they're aware of it. So, awareness and understanding are there. But then we ask ourselves, maybe the next slide you can show. Yeah, the next slide is really about the forms of corruption. And here, it's very clear for everyday Filipinos, while they still believe that grand corruption, the way it was articulated and made exemplified by the flood control scandal, is important. 6 out of 10 Filipinos believe it's important. The kind of corruption that affects them badly, or close to 7 out of 10 experience this, is really bribery, petty corruption that they experience at the administrative level. Okay, this is another one. Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll talk about this. So first, we had that discussion about Filipinos believing still that government can solve its problems. Now we ask in a separate study, what's your view about our political elites, our politicians? And we framed it very clearly. Our elected officials, both at the local government level and at the congressional level, at the national level, specifically Congress here, congressmen and senators. And what's the finding? There's a clear deficit, a disconnect as far as representation. And maybe that's also an important finding. Diba? We're talking about the problems of governance and democracy. 61% believe elected officials do not value what people, the voters, like them think. This is a serious signal of democratic.
Right. So basically, yung tanong
Connect.
sa palagay mo, pinapahalaga ng mga politiko, yung mga boto mo, yung opinion mo, yun yung tanong dito, di ba? Do
Yes, yes.
elected officials value what people think? Do they reflect us? Are they truly representative? 61% said no.
Yeah, so do leaders listen to citizens? And remember, is this surprising? Maybe not. But is it an important input to the broader question of, let's say, anti-dynasty law, the movement for the enactment of an anti-dynasty law, or even the issue of the movement pushing for reforms in the party list? The people who are elected officials here, 90% of them are from dynasties, and maybe this is one of the key reasons why people, why we should have an anti-dynasty law, because these politicians do not listen. And this is what the people are saying. Representation. Do leaders listen to citizens? 61% say no. Diba? This is a serious signal of democratic distance. Voters feel unheard. This issue is not just performance, it's connection. There's a disconnect.
I want to go again to the subgroup. Sorry, like ito yung mga heterogeneous treatment. Like if you want to do policy, right? Like again, it's very interesting here. Yung sa class E, yung pinakamahirap natin mga kababayan, most marginalized, sila yung pinakamay believe actually sa mga politiko, di ba? Sila yung pinakamalaking E eh. 41% of them. Hindi kaya ang dahilan dyan is because dun sa ating mga kababayan na pinaka-underprivileged, may mas direct contact sila sa mga politiko dahil sa mga daily na pangangailangan nila. So baka more personalized?
It's
I don't know,
possible.
ayuda, maybe tulong.
All of them are above ano naman eh. All of them are so you have to understand that this is the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? And the agree that is around 56%, disagree 17%. Okay, can't say agree or disagree. So this is a it's possible this is the class breakdown, but when you look at the regional breakdown, it's really big. Yeah.
So
So it's
what's the
possible.
recap right now? Let me see
Yeah,
if I
it's
have the recap.
possible. It's possible. It's the ayuda. It's the
Right,
connection on the distance. No.
right.
Uh, uh, but then again, regionally, you'll see that Filipinos feel that they're not heard. And this is
Yeah,
a key finding here. Now, then you go on to something specific, another issue. Again, these are three different probes. We're just showing the
right.
finding. Maybe they will reveal something about the problem, no, the challenge that of governance and democracy in the country. We're electing people who don't listen to us.
Right.
That's the cause of Team Pinas, no? Voter education,
Absolutely.
citizens education for democracy. These are the things we need to work together on. And then there's a last slide which really focuses on corruption.
Yeah, I'm trying to
No,
bring
take your
up.
time. So taken together, the three. Yeah, no, that's not the one. Yeah, but
No, no,
together.
no, I'm pressing the other one. Iba yung lumalabas one second. Let me close this
Take
windows.
your time. Take your time.
Nag,
But But
na-overwhelm yata
let
yung
me be
Yeah,
clear,
please,
no?
go ahead. Yes.
Uh, the lower economic classes feel the representation gap more deeply. So I just
Right.
want to clarify, the Class E respondents show slightly higher belief that officials may value their views, but still a majority believe they do not. This suggests frustration cuts across classes, but manifests differently. Okay, so this is important, no? You know, at some level, that it's a can we say it's a democracy paradox, no? Diba?
Yun nga.
Filipinos trust government
Exactly.
capacity more than they trust politicians' intentions. At some level, this might mean that citizens distinguish between institutions and at some level the politicians, no? And this is the effect of after almost 6 months of bashing the political elite because of this flood control scandal, no?
Yeah, I mean, you could also say na maybe people are not giving up on the promise of the system. They're
Yeah,
skeptical of those who have occupied it for now. So, ibig sabihin,
yeah.
pag pinalitan natin itong mga kurakot na mga tao or mga problematic na politiko,
Mm.
lalabas yung potential ng ating democratic system. Baka there's also one way to interrogate it.
Ah.
So, this is a
So
service, right?
yeah,
Bribery.
this is analytically important. It
Yeah,
suggests reform is possible
it's
within
possible. Yeah,
rather
exactly.
than through regime rejection. So
Exactly.
that's the thing that I think is important to look into. Now, in this particular slide, uh, and by the way, this is just part of a broader set of questions.
Right.
So we're looking at corruption, and corruption is it's a multi-dimension. It's complex, but we want to see the everyday Filipinos view about corruption. So in the third quarter, we came out with a survey that basically argues, okay, the basic finding was, okay, how do you feel about corruption in general, especially the flood control
Right.
scandal? And number one, the first 6 out of 10 Filipinos felt anger. Okay, so that's the first major finding. That's in the third quarter of 2025. In the fourth quarter, we started asking, okay, you feel angry about corruption, but do you understand corruption? 7 out of 10 Filipinos understand corruption as really the use of government resources for private. So it's very clear. They understand. They're not stupid. They're not unaware. They're actually, very knowledgeable about this issue in a sense, no? Number two, are they aware of the complexity of it, or at least aware that it exists, it's endemic? The answer is again, nearly 7 out of 10 say yes. Now, this is the finding. What, how do you understand corruption in everyday life? No, lived experience. So corruption has 4 phases, and at least the top 4. We asked them to list down top 4, rank them. So number 1 is bribery, 73%, or panunuhol in Filipino. Number 2 is misuse of public funds. This is the grand corruption you see in the flood control projects, no? 66%. You won't believe this. Vote buying is seen by Filipinos as a form of corruption, political
Yeah, and
corruption.
it's highest among Class E, 69% ng Class E.
And in Visayas and Mindanao, where apparently our other
So they
surveys
know
show,
it's bad. So they know it's bad. It's not
no, they know it's bad. We don't know if they actually, but then that's an issue, no? And then the last part, the rounding out the top 4 is slow justice. See, across incomes, income classes, ages, and gender, these four forms or four phases of corruption dominate public perception. The consistency is striking because it's all above 50%, no? Whether in NCR, Mindanao, ABC, or Class E, the same four appear. Corruption in this sense, Richard, is not abstract to the everyday Filipino. It's concrete, it's visible, it's experienced as an everyday thing. Okay? So, a second takeaway siguro is to look at the data and say that corruption is structural. Kasi you see a lot of petty administrative corruption. It seems this is what Filipinos experience on a large scale, no? And when you look at the granular data below, these types of corruption are not just nationwide, no? When you look at the upper and middle classes, they worry about the privilege at different types of corruption. So for the rich and the middle class, it's a misuse of government funds. This is a form of grand corruption, di ba? Okay, that affects all of us, no? For the lower income groups, it's vote buying, slow justice, bribery. And in some regions, when you look at the data, corruption is more intense than in other places, no? So it tells us the corruption is systemic. It's rooted in weaknesses as far as the administrative process is concerned. You know this Klitgard formula, no? Corruption exists. We talked about it in one of your podcasts before, no? That corruption is like an equation, no? Corruption is the existence of monopolies of power in agencies plus wide discretion by a small coterie of officials, and the absence of transparency and accountability. When you see that combination, you know that government office is prone to
Corruption, yeah.
But
High
again,
discretion, high access to funds, and then low scrutiny and checks and
yes.
balances. That's the equation.
So when you look at this data, juxtapose our data on governance and democracy, this issue of corruption is widely recognized, no? By our countrymen, and it's regularly experienced. But then again, that's where the problem lies also. That while we are against it, we shun it, maybe some of us actually still, no, rationalize it, no, and take part in it, diba? Corruption is not just systemic, The issue is also about citizenship, no? Yes, we find out that it's experienced by many, but corruption is two-way, diba? There's a supply and demand for it, Richard, no? Many Filipinos know corruption is wrong. They admit it's widespread. Yet sometimes some of our countrymen justify it or participate in it because they're under pressure, no? So the line between victim and participant blurs, no? When you look at this complex problem, especially when you say vote buying, everyday bribery. I mean, some of our countrymen need the license or the clearance because they need to go, to get work, and because of that they have to pay, diba? So this is something that has to be understood. This is not just a problem of systems; it's also a problem of citizenship. And
Ranjit, can I interrogate this? Because this is a very interesting survey. By the way, again, commissioned by the Office of the Ombudsman. So kudos to the Ombudsman Office for pushing for a scientific understanding of anong perception ng ating mga kababayan pagdating sa issue ng corruption. So we're looking at different indicators of corruption: bribery, nepotism, irregularities in public procurement, vote buying, irregularities in public use of public funds, and slow justice. You're looking at 6 different indicators of corruption. So very good job. I like that at least we're having a variegated understanding of corruption.
Yeah.
Again, for me, the interesting thing is the heterogeneous take across classes. So for instance, it looks like for Class E, yung pinaka-underprivileged na kababayan natin, the issue of irregularities in the use of public funds, siguro ang suspecha ko, ito yung mga flood control projects. It is, it's 47%, but it's much more serious for Class D and Class ABC at almost 70%. So I think that's a very interesting one.
Interesting.
On the issue of nepotism, bribery, I think lahat naman almost exactly the same number with the margin of error plus 3%. But then again, on the irregularities in public procurement, so again, may kinalaman ito sa infrastructure, 20% for E, but more than 30% for D and ABC. So baka this shows that the ABC and D are more sensitive dito sa flood control projects and all, and baka yung mga ibang kababayan natin are more concerned about other kinds of more petty again, everyone is against corruption. This is not a moral judgment. It's just a question of yung what resonates with them more. For me, the other important thing also here, Prof. Ranjit, and I'm going to draw on this a lot. This is a very important data set. Majority of all classes, E, D, and even more for ABC, see justice as a problem. Sabi ko,
Yeah.
dito galing ang Dutertismo. This is Dutertismo. Almost 7 out of 10 Filipino middle class see justice as a problem, slow justice as a problem. Kaya nga hindi ako nagtataka na malakas si SARA sa ABC, di ba? SARA has a very good numbers among ABC. Duterte way higher. And slow justice is also an issue for END. Kaya sabi ko, itong penal populism, yung Digong style na kailangan natin ng strongman kasi you can see, ang laki ng potential niya. If I'm DDS, I look at this. If I'm Digong, I said, oh, mukhang. And people see this as a form of corruption. But I want to add another thing, Prof. Ranjit. As someone who's a lot into this developmental state, this kind of strong state, I'm worried when I see the nepotism. Nepotism is only 14%. Which tells you, hindi yata natin na-appreciate that it's sobrang damaging din kung wala tayong meritocracy sa estado. Because nepotism basically means kung sino-sino nilalagay natin sa mga importanteng mga posisyon na may kinalaman doon sa... So hindi, kasi nakaw, masamang nakaw, pero masama din yung pag medyo syunga. Or mali-mali yung policy. But we don't see that as a big problem. So as someone who cares about...
But, it's curious nga na sinama yung slow justice, which is not, it's not regularly seen as a form of corruption.
But maybe people see it as judges, fiscals. But this is very important. This is an absolute. I find this slide very, very helpful, and I'm going to draw on this a lot. Thank you so much to both the Ombudsman Office and also you folks at Octa Research doing this. So it looks like there's a strong sense that the justice system is broken. Something has to be done about it. Ombudsman Ramula has mentioned this. Pero itong nepotism is very worrying for me because very few Filipinos see that as a problem. When in fact, for me, you cannot build a strong, capable state kung may nepotism ka, which is clearly a problem. Like there are many people who are, I don't know, ASEC, USEC na they shouldn't be there, right? Or ang daming tao na director pa rin na who shouldn't be there. And we have like, how many thousands of appointments do we have, Prof. Ranjit, every...
I think the president directly appoints something like 3,000 or 4,000 members.
That's a lot. That's a lot,
no,
right?
But indirectly, meaning all the directors...
10,000?
About 12,000. That's
12,000.
12,000. But that's an old estimate.
Exactly.
PCIJ pa ata nga yan eh. So
Absolutely.
indirectly, it looks like you have a highly politicized bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
And that while in other countries, they only, the president only gets to appoint at to undersecretary level. Everyone else is career. So
Civil
that's a
servants,
big, so at some level, when you have this data, you begin to realize reform must target not just systems but also behavior. Because in the end, Richard, while reform must reduce supply, meaning improve systems, standardized processes, digital use of digital systems to reduce intermediaries and middlemen, stronger audits, faster and justice, no. And even stricter election laws, kasi there's an issue of vote buying here. We also have to look at how citizens play into the problem. If citizens contribute by paying suhol, no, or naglalagay kayo, you contribute to the system. You contribute to that problem or the continuing cycle of corruption in the country. So we can't just approach this by reforming systems, but we also have to really improve the way we look at administrative systems, the way we approach it, and we have to act not as individuals but as citizens, diba? This is a real question now. What do we do, diba? I think the reform agenda for institutions, I think it's set. But on the other hand, we have to through Team Pinas, for example, we have to constantly remind our fellow countrymen that they have a role in this, larger common fight against corruption. And that is to follow rules, not to take part in, these kinds of petty corruption at the administrative level. I know it's hard, but, when we become part of the supply and demand chain, it will be very hard for us to solve this problem. I don't think we can just solve it through systems. That's all I'm saying. There has to be citizenship involved in trying to challenge this continuing problem of both governance and democracy in our country.
So I think that's a perfect segue dun sa second part of our discussion natin, because it looks like meron na tayong mga ingredients or potential ingredients. Let's not call it grand coalition, but some sort of a big tent alignment, right? Kumbaga, towards, I would say, better governance. Interestingly, just the other week, President Marcos, during an ASEAN, I think this is Economic Opinion Leaders Summit, sabi niya, gusto niya yung susunod na presidente ng Pilipinas, someone who understands economics, someone who understands how bureaucracy and development works. So that basically signals meritocracy, no? So basically, sinasabi ni VBM is, gusto ko competent yung next president to get things going. And obviously, many supporters of Ma'am Lenny immediately said, oh, here, perfect. We have an economista, we have a lawyer, someone competent, etc. So for me, even more interesting than that is, it looks like walang backlash after that very chummy Pink Socks meeting between BBM and Lenny. And then the next thing you know, Lenny is in Malacanang, Vico Soto is there, etc. Prof. Ranjit, do you think in a way Sara Duterte announcing her officially, like entering the race, diba? I mean, she has been saying it for a while, pero the way she said it, na parang galit, na naka-black, and right before the trial of her father dito sa Hague, maybe this has triggered the counter movement or counter hegemonic blocks, kung kumbaga, di ba? Kasi
Yeah,
we all agree. I think Duterte's are still the hegemonic bloc in terms of sila yung nakalatag na yung sistema eh. All
they have a base already. It's already
absolutely. There's a
coherent.
base, there's a farm,
The
there's
messaging. They're leading the race at the moment, no? And I don't want to comment about the strategy part. I think it's very clear she wanted to change the narrative and say, over the next few weeks, over the next 60 days, I don't know how it's going to be, but there's going to be a discussion about the impeachment complaint, and she wanted to talk to her base and tell them that I'm running for president, and anything you hear after this is really just persecution. It's really about politics. There's nothing to it. We have to stay together, and maybe at some level she was also letting everybody know you have to take a side. You all know where I am.
or don't mess with me. I might be your next president.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So that take a side. So you can decide not to support the impeachment process. So she wants to make sure that this whole process is not about accountability anymore, which I think it is, and I know it is. But something that's political, that it basically political persecution. So, but she's doing very well now. I mean, whoever's handling her is doing a good job. She's her numbers are resilient.
You mean not doing anything? Is
but maybe that's
not saying not doing anything.
Maybe that's part of the plan, not to make her talk as much, because make her commit mistakes and all of these things. And I mean, the moment she talked, everybody criticized her style and everything. But everything was strategic. It was calibrated. Then the question is, what's going to happen on the other side? That's the bigger issue now. She's laid out her plans. She's done her homework. She's building and consolidating. She's not just consolidating her coalition. She's building it, no? And that, I guess, is the big message, no? The big challenge. You started right, no? By saying, this may have created the impetus for creating a counter-hegemonic bloc, no? If we quote Gramsci, no? And what is that block composed of, diba? And the block is still, whatever it is, it's still amorphous. We're uncertain of what form it is. And still talking about small things. We talked about this in November last year. The need for the anti-Duterte forces to coalesce, to build a grand coalition around
pro-democracy forces. It's not a negative force, it's a positive force.
Okay, or so whatever. So, the pro-democracy forces have to come together and build around not personalities, but particular, ideological lines, no? And one of them is, of course, the view that liberal democracy, in whatever form it is in the country now, is under attack, and that to save that liberal order, they all have to come together, and that would mean require having at least one or require one candidate to represent the progressive bloc. But again, the discussion is deteriorated to families, dynasties, and even the discussion of personal and familial ambitions. What seems to be unclear to me is the appreciation that this is an urgent situation, and people have to come together and build that coalition and start expanding, broadening that coalition. Again, to save democracy in the country. Yun yung point. That was our November 4 discussion, when I came out and said, it doesn't take, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that particular model of governance, we call it the Davao model, di ba? Sa ICC, is now in place. And there's a strong argument for it because it was decisive, it was populist, it got things done.
Pati si Kaufman na nga
The democracy model that we have today. The moderate.
Pati si Kaufman, yung lawyer nila, naging ganun na rin mag-isip.
Oh, parang naging
Na-download niya yung algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have a model naman, di ba? We can call it, whatever. It's a liberal order. And right now, after their meeting with the president and his pink socks, a lot of people actually felt good about that engagement. Now there's a
Were you surprised? No, honestly, okay, Prof.
I was surprised.
Let's slow down there because the timing right after the SARA statement, parang biglang umiba yung news cycle. BBM obviously saying walang kinalaman sa politika, but this is big fun for I think this is it the Jesse Robredo Center? The pink socks. I mean, it looked to me like it was a very, I don't want to use the word calculated, but I would say it was a very optimized, let's say, choreography of movements. And si Ma'am Lenny, she was just natural and she was just positively responding. I don't know if you saw the pictures of yung mga taga-Naga, nakaganyan kay BBM. And then yung pictures sa Malacanang, like talagang hug and all, like mas sweet pa sila sa isa't isa kaysa tayong dalawa, Prof. Ranjit. Kaysa kami ni Ronald. We're not that sweet. And no backlash. There were a little bit, some people making noise, but all the pink influencers I know were endorsing it, posting pictures of Lenny walking Malacanang, pictures charming with BBM. That was quite a rapid,
Yeah, I know. It
this
actually
was the biggest rivalry supposed to be, right?
Yeah, I think it's
BBM.
And when you look at the survey data, she is the leading candidate for the Liberals. Honestly, I mean, I don't have to
And
say
if
this.
Rafi doesn't run, she will
And
clear.
if Rafi doesn't run,
She's clearly
or
the
decides to
other.
take a secondary role, she is in a best position. And there are three people here, no? You have Rafi Tulfo, slightly higher than her, and then Lenny Robredo, and surprisingly, Isko Moreno, all of whom took some form of optics, pictures with the president over the past few days. And I think it's created some sort of excitement that, there's hope and there's an alternative. And that what has to happen now is really, for those alternatives to come together, di ba? Kasi, people have to see the sense of urgency here. The 2028 contest, if we frame it the way we framed it, Richard, as a civilizational, di ba? Or in regime terms, di ba? Some sort of...
JD Vance. Okay, no. Okay,
think about it. Liberal constitutionalism versus strongman populism. These are the real issues here. Then if you accept that this is a challenge to our regime, that at some level this is a competition among models of regimes, di ba? Then the idea of a grand coalition, something you brought up, something we've been bringing up, the idea of a grand coalition argument becomes less about personality and really more about institutional direction. No, we really have to take it seriously, because at stake here is not the existential threat to the Marcoses or the Dutertes. It's really the existential threat to our democracy. Diba? And that's where I think the stakes are quite high. And I may be oversimplifying it, but there's an urgency to come together. And right now, when you look at Lenny, I'm not saying she should be the one, huh? There's a harp nga, di ba?
Yeah, this is all just
But just this is all
signaling
going to change. Things are going. But if we frame it that way, there will be an urgency to bring people together and a framework that will become more inclusive to all types of groups, no? And I think that's the way to go forward. Personally, I thought it was nice to see them together. It's a narrative it's a winning narrative, for me, no. Two Democrats coming together and saying, we've been against each other, but now it's it's a survival of this regime at stake, and we have to come together to save it, diba? And it's a great model. Now you have the Davao model, and if she's accepted as the lead of this growing coalition,
Naga model.
then
Model
it becomes
versus
the Naga
Naga model.
model, diba? It becomes the
Absolutely.
Naga versus the Davao model. Which model will best be the model for the future of democracy and governance in the country? And I guess that's a compelling narrative, diba? Mayor Lenny is the complete antithesis of VP Sara. I'm not saying bad or good here. I'm not saying vote for Sara, vote for Lenny. I'm just saying that they represent different kinds of politics, and they represent a different model of the future that a lot of people will be are compelled to follow. Let's not forget, whether it's Octa, whether it's Pulse, or what. No, I'm saying Octa lang, no, or even WR. Sige, our partners. Sara is still leading as far as preference is concerned, around 30%.
Yeah, I mean
And,
that's a pretty crystallized base, and a
yeah,
lot of that is because of the solid South factor, which is the new source
yes,
of
yes.
cleavage, no?
It's
Na
located
crystallize it.
there's a
Absolutely,
limit to it actually right now, and the
absolutely.
limit is really up north, no? Yeah.
But I want to push on this because people might misunderstand, like we're endorsing Lenny or we're saying this.
No, we're not. We're not
Really, if
endorsing
you
anyone. What
so
we're
if
saying is
Lenny,
these narratives are the ones
exactly,
emerging.
but if
And it
Lenny
depends on us which future of the Philippines we want to choose.
Absolutely, but if Lenny doesn't run, which is also a high probability,
Yeah.
if not at the very least a possibility, maybe she'll endorse Bam, maybe she'll endorse Risa, etc. Prof. Ranjit, pag tinanggal mo si Lenny and hindi tatakbo si Rafi, what would the race look like? Because I think that's what people don't understand. It's not like Risa will run against Lenny or Bam against Risa or Lenny, right? One of them is gonna run. That's it. I even have doubts if Rafi will run at this point anymore. So actually, what will the race look like if Lenny is not running and Rafi is not running? Like, could you give us some intimation on that? Because I think people are just assuming it's just Lenny, Sara, because everyone else is just 1 to 2%. But if Lenny doesn't run, her numbers will go to someone else, right? Not 100%, but if it's Bam, if it's Risa, I think that 13%, a lot of that will go to those folks, and then the race will be different. Because feel ko medyo nagiging distortionary yung ganyan surveys if you just look at the first iteration. Because it's not like Lenny and Risa and Bam will run against each other, right? Or I don't know, Bongo will run against Sara. It's not gonna happen. There's gonna be consolidation along blocks. Can you give us an idea what will be the second iteration of that if some of these top candidates don't run, except obviously Sara, who said she will run?
Well, we still first, the structure of the surveys are really match-ups, and we've gotten two or three matchups at most at the moment. And it seems that in all of these matchups, we have the Sara Amy Marcos tandem as leading in any of these matchups at the moment. And
Makes
while I
perfect
know
sense
this
because
is
of those two
premature,
images of solid south, solid north. It's still the
while
images.
it's
Yeah.
still that, no? And while it's still premature, these numbers will change. So much is going to happen. Okay. These are what we're looking at. The tandem in particular, not Duterte Marcoleta, not Duterte Padilla. What's formidable at the moment is really Duterte Amy Marcos. And if that continues, then that base of support we're expecting from the Ilocanos will be split, no, in some sense, no. And if she keeps that narrative in place, she's going to be quite formidable. Now the problem is at the
So for
moment,
Sara, just to be clear,
Lenny is very
so for
strong right
Sara,
now.
her road to Malacanang basically is get someone who can at least split the solid north and then hold on to
Yeah,
our solid south. That gives
yeah,
you enough numbers. So
yeah.
what about the other side? Like what are the parang kumbaga parang ano yun, the road to the White House? Ano yung mga alignments ng kailangan ng kabila considering this is much more formidable? Like if Lenny
Yeah.
runs or Bam runs or someone like that.
Well, again, um, I think the road is not really about personalities. It's the road forward will be about coalitions. You see, if you have a one-on-one contest, then it becomes easier to breach that gap, that lead of VP Duterte. I think it's very clear, but who will lead? Right now, the person leading the pack is Senator Tulfo slightly and really Leni Robredo. Now, the potential of VP Robredo is big because she ran already. There's already a base in place. It's just not
She was the
mobilized
vice
government.
president.
Yeah, she was the vice president before. And no, but it's not just that. It's really the compelling, the narrative, the coalition, her coalition, what it represents. No, it's a completely different, no, and a competitive narrative also at that point at this stage to compete with the narrative, the model of governance that we understand as the Davao model. Kasi nga, it becomes clear na it's the strongman populist versus the Democrats, no? The moderates, no? The Naga model versus the Davao model. And if it's built around ideas, I think more and more people will be attracted to it rather than personalities. Because right now, if it's just really about personalities, apart from Ma'am Lenny, from VP Lenny, there are very few people who are really compelling at this stage. I don't know, of course, over the period of 1 year. I think there's a process that the liberals are going to get into, the Dilaos or Pinklamas, however they're called, no? The pro-democracy forces are getting into. They're going to go through some form of primaries, and each one is trying to build their own portfolio, their own, trying to campaign, no? In a sense, for people to prefer them. So, you can't take out of the picture Senator Bam Aquino. You can't take out of the picture people who are really good, no? Like Senator Risa Ontiveros, no? Who's very qualified to take charge, no? And then there are other people who are coming in, the technocrats, Vince Dizons, the secretary.
Remulla, of course,
My
Remulla.
God,
Yeah.
he just came
Remulla.
out of nowhere in the preference survey. They're not very high, but the
But they're
fact
in
that
the mix.
he has symbolic preference now, and he really hasn't started doing what he's doing. And then you have General Torre, who's just
Actually, General Torres should be in the surveys. I mean, it makes
yeah,
sense.
he is in RSO. So,
Yeah.
I can't talk about the details, but they have preference already at this early.
Absolutely.
It's small, so you can't. It's still a long period of time, at least this year, to build those personalities, and maybe in combination with one another. Because we're not just talking about Leni Robredo. She has to have a good vice president by her
Let's talk
side.
about that. So what would most remember last year nung pinag-usapan natin to, we look at two tandems as the most competitive against each other.
Yeah.
One was the double R, Rafi and Risa. Happy birthday kay Senator Risa. And the other one was Aimee and Sara, right? Like
Sarah and Aimee,
so you could
yeah.
see how the two how each tandems were complementing each other. Now let's say if it's someone like Lenny who runs as a standard bearer, and potentially there could be some sort of support from the admin because they also have an interest in having a good person becoming the next
Yeah.
president, or at least not Sara Duterte. Would the vice president coming from the admin side make sense? I mean, I can think of General Torre as the perfect
Yeah,
bridge because he's very palatable to the Pinks who love him, obviously. He worked with the president. Of course, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, just to put it mildly. Kaya nga nasa MMDA na siya ngayon, hindi na siya PNP chief. But nevertheless, he's also from Mindanao. He can speak Waray. He has a Basilan connection. So, wouldn't
Yeah,
the Lenny
the people
Torre
who
one also
love
make
him a
sense?
lot, huh? The people who, I've seen him in public spaces and
Rockstar, rockstar.
rockstar yung dating, lalo dito up north, no? But he's polarized in the south. He's his image is one that is polarizing as far as Mindanao is concerned. So that's a challenge. But again, excellent to be a vice president. Remulla is also excellent to be a vice president. No, he'll bring Cavite and all of these, consolidate the north, because there's this if you look at the data, again, this is just data driven, and these are all preliminary. This was all done in the fourth quarter. This will all change. What seems to be working for Ma'am Lenny is a combination of Lenny Tulfo, Lenny Isko at the moment. And if you put those combinations together, they're competitive against a SARA Aimee tandem. Of course, if that doesn't work, there's a second tier, no. But it doesn't seem to be clear that it would work with, let's say, Lenny and Bam, for example. So,
Sorry, Prof. Ranjit, I'm putting you
competitive.
on the spot, but for me,
It's preliminary. This is just what we see
I know
in
that.
the
Ako
data.
kasi
Yeah.
I love everyone. I love Ronan. I love everything. But honestly, yung discussion that I found that the most useful. And I think many people are like, because they know you have numbers, you're doing private surveys that obviously you cannot share. So, hindi ito haka-haka lang. Hindi
Yeah,
ito normative lang. This is based on actual numbers and all. Kaya, salamat. I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot. Of course, these are
but I
some
think
private surveys.
yeah, but the idea here, Richard, is not to focus on the personalities niya. It's about building that grand coalition. And and building it in such a way that those who are right now offense sitting, the so-called, ambivalent, without any choice, we're not choosing either Duterte, Marcos, or even the Pinks, will be convinced that this is the future of our country. And people are convinced if they know it will have an impact on everyday governance. People will choose the side that will choose democracy, because 8 out of 10 Filipinos want democracy, but they want it to work for them. Right now, they're seeing the Duterte model, the Davao model, as a model that gets things done. So this coalition has to start building. The groups have to start talking, and they have to work together, because they have to show to the everyday voter that this model of democracy is the best choice. Okay, there's no choice, apart from this. It will require these groups to work together to make this administration successful, and to ensure that people like Lenny, VP Lenny in Naga, will also be successful. So, you're trying to sell to the everyday Filipino that this position, being a liberal, a pro-democracy person, is actually good for the country and good for the future of the country. But if this administration fails, if Lenny is unable to create any change in Naga, if the coalitions, very strong coalition of Akbayan, Risa, do not come together with the other pinks and the yellows and the reds, whoever they are, I don't think there'll be a viable option against VP Duterte and their move.
Very formidable.
You're not against. You have to understand. You have to identify the challenge at the moment. The challenge is VP Duterte is not just a person. She's part of a kilusan. They're part of a movement. And their movement has an argument against this model of democracy already in place. They have their own interests. And if it's made clear to everyday voters what the difference is, voters can decide. And they will decide not just because of personality, they'll decide because these are two different visions of where the Philippines should go. And that's what we're trying to argue here. Building the coalition, defining that ideological position, making sure that people understand this is a fight for the future of our own country. It's a regime survival, in a sense. Then people will be compelled to take a side. And I believe, once that coalition of pro-democracy people come together, they'll be compelling whoever their candidate will be. And of course, the compelling candidate for their side right now, with the compelling narrative that can be built on, that's already tested, is really VP Lenny at the moment. And if you put them together, that's a very VP Sara and VP Lenny, the women. Honestly, we should have more women leading this country. Alam mo, the best aspects of the Filipino are really in the women. And I think I disagree with other pollsters and analysts that the Philippines is not ready for an all-women tandem. We can have that, you know. Imagine VP Lenny and this Senator Risa, VP Lenny, and somebody even different, no, like Pia Cayetano, somebody who's quietly, contributed so much to the life of the nation. So these are all, ang daming
Wait,
pwedeng
Pia
permutation.
Cayetano. I'm sorry. Just,
No, no, I know. You have a different.
Cayetano, sir. I'm
But
sorry.
when you look at her
Yeah.
list of laws and how it's affected women empowerment and health,
And then
you
she
know,
supported Duterte. Right?
yeah, I know. These are all the.
Mas ano, lino ba
I'm
yung
just
mas
saying
bata?
that
Yeah,
they're different. They're different permutations and combinations. People can come
absolutely.
together sometime and decide not based on personality alone and not based on winnability alone, but based on the idea that they support this particular vision for the country. And it's true, tama yung sinabi ni President and si VP Lenny. The only way forward is to make a compelling argument that this model of democracy, this model of governance is what works and what should endure in 2028.
So last point, Prof. Ranjit, I mean, here, maybe put aside your Octa research, more as a political scientist. Like,
I put aside my Octa research that 30 minutes
kanina
ago.
pa. Kaso yung background mo kasi dyan. So I keep on making
I'll change that.
disclaimers. I keep on, no, it's okay. I keep on making disclaimers on your behalf. No, I mean, what could be
Sorry,
the...
I have to apologize to my board and to my friend.
Yeah.
My own opinions are my own opinions.
Absolutely. It's just like me. No, everyone disowns me when I say something that is not popular. But when it's not, when it's popular, everone, yeah, Richard works.
But what are we saying here? Let's all,
So what is the glue? What
we
is
have
the
to
glue?
come
What could
together.
bring
The
together?
coalition is not
Exactly.
just a political pragmatism. It's a necessity now because of the existential challenge to our democracy. And we have to come together, along, we don't have to, they don't have to love each other. I mean, that's what consensus building is. Di ba? So coalition building is. We don't have to be particularly like each other, but we have to a set of ideas, a common vision for society, and let's work on that. And then after that, choose candidates that best represents that model of governance and democracy. Again, yun nga, at stake here is the existential threat. And I think if people understand it that way and not understand it from the point of view of politics, political families and familiar interest, I think we'll move forward faster.
It cannot be the usual liberalism.
No,
it cannot be the usual dilaw. Let's be clear. That doesn't work too. Kaya nga lumakas ng Duterte.
And they can't win on their own. Honestly,
and they can't win on their own. Exactly.
They have to work with the administration because they're pushing a particular model of governance forward. And the details, we leave that up to the tacticians and but this grand coalition has to happen now.
And maybe let's just call it Pink 2.0 for in the meantime. Not Dilaw, not Pink of 2022, but something different, more inclusive, more broad-based para you can build a winning coalition. Yeah,
it's building a winning coalition, whatever color it is. It has to have a couple of things in place. One is, it should be supportive of good governance. It should be supportive of our national interests, land in the West
Philippine Sea. Human rights, obviously.
It should rights. Be supportive of human rights, because those are the things. And that it is at the end, whether they like each other or not, they all agree that they're Democrats, and that the way forward is not to shun democracy, but to broaden and deepen it. So the candidates that will represent that, there are quite a number of them. Not all of them are as popular as Lenny, but we don't know. This whole year will be spent on building that coalition. And again, if it's built around ideas, more people will support it. And that's the way forward, I think.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, the political scientist, Ranjit Rai, who also happens to come from Octa. So the first part is really the Octa, and then the second part is
my opinions.
Your opinions. Dapat nag-change background ka bigla.
Dapat nga. Anyway, at any rate, thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, as always.
And again, these are just ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And we're not saying vote for this person, vote for that. What we're saying is that the way forward is for us to come together around ideas, ideology, platform, instead of families and political dynasties.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you very much, Prof. Ranjit, and looking forward to catching up with you in person next month, and of course also catching up also on developments kasi may rallies na and all ngayon, diba? So
Yeah,
I'm just looking
Yeah,
at
well, important
Ronald.
EDSA, no?
Very.
Celebrate EDSA should be,
Absolutely.
something we should reflect on, the quality of our democracy. And alam mo yun, this is important to
Absolutely.
remember and to never forget also
The
that
sacrifice
we
of
have a role in shaping our
Yeah.
everyday as citizens in this country.
God bless. Salamat po.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Talk to you soon, sir. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Prof. Ranjit.